walking a journey of faith here, but the way is not always straight and smooth, as we just heard in the song. And I find that we turn our will over, so to speak, we turn our will over to the care and keeping of God, and then what do we do next? We take it back, right? And we repeat. And it's been my experience that faith is truly a messy business. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Will is one of Unity's 12 powers. Unity co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore talked about these 12 powers, or these 12 abilities that all human beings have. And will is one of them. Will is our ability to choose and to decide, to command, lead, and determine. And that makes a lot of sense to me when I think about turning my will over to the care and keeping of God. It does not mean that I somehow become a mindless zombie or anything like that. It just means that I turn to that presence of God in order to discern and to know what is right, what is the next right thing for me to do, rather than relying only on my thinking mind, my busy, chattering mind, to make such decisions. That's when I take it back to my lowercase s self, if you will, where I turn it over to God. My uppercase S self is a way to look at it. So when we turn it over to God, we're relying on that Christ consciousness that is within us for guidance. Sometimes we run into times of trouble, like the Beatles song. We get off the path, if you will, or disconnected, feeling disconnected. I'm very familiar with that feeling. It's been my experience that that is something that ebbs and flows in my life, and it has, and I imagine that it will. I don't look at my path as anything where I'm ever done. You know that phrase, one and done. It's not a one and done kind of thing. It's an ebb and a flow and an expansion is how I think of it. So from time to time, I might find myself with a feeling of aimlessness somehow or other. And it's not necessarily that I'm, quote, in trouble or causing trouble, though it may be those things as well. But being off the path is not an inherently bad thing. It's just a sign. I think it's a sign of growth. I've heard it said that doubt is a critical component in faith, and I totally agree with that. I mean, if I had a faith that was 100% assured all the time, where is faith in there? 100% assurance is not faith. Faith is a knowing that truly all is well, and I simply need to find the way for that to be my experience in the world. So if I'm off the path, if I'm feeling somewhat disconnected, it doesn't mean that things aren't going my way. It means we are in a place where we're reminded what that feels like to be disconnected from God. You know, I've heard it said that God doesn't, I don't know how to say this, so I'm going to toss out my unity correct terms. God doesn't punish people for sins. Our disconnection from God, that experience, that's the problem. That's the downside of it. We're not punished for our sins, so to speak. We're punished by them. My minister used to say, sin, S-I-N, meant spiritually ignorant notion. You know, any thought I'm carrying, any idea that I'm carrying that is contrary to the goodness and the ever-presence of God is a spiritually ignorant notion. The etymology of the word means I'm missing the mark. I'm like I see an arrow. You know, if I'm shooting it way over there, I'm missing the mark. Sometimes when it feels like our life is falling apart, it may be that it's falling together. Have you ever had that experience? I certainly have. And while it's not anything I would go out and seek, I recognize the benefit of it and the power of it. You know, any healing that occurs with us, anything that we are carrying that is not serving our highest good, when it comes to our attention, that's usually not a pleasant experience, right? There's a reason that we bury those things. We don't want anything to do with them, those difficult experiences. But we also know that any healing that's going to occur, anything that we are letting go of is going to leave the same way it came in. I've heard it said if you walk 10 miles into the woods, you need to walk 10 miles out of the woods. And the healing that occurs is going to leave the same way it came in, which is right in your face. Right? Or if you've ever had the flu, I had the flu once as an adult that I remember. It was 15 years ago. I'm grateful I've not had it since. It was terrible. But when you come to the end of that, you just feel like you've been wrung out, like a sponge or something. And that sickness leaves, and you are well aware of its presence and grateful for its leading. So we surrender to the divine presence. And in the words of Psalm 46, we do this: be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. In those words, be still and know, notice it doesn't talk about thinking, talking. Be still and know. We practice this in our meditation, right? In our prayer practice. In unity prayer and meditation, almost just about the same thing. Our prayer is contemplative prayer. Our meditation is a form of mindfulness. So we turn within and we practice being still and knowing, allowing, if you will. Unity teachings provide us with tools that we can use to shift our thinking, to shift our consciousness. We recognize that thought is the currency, if you will, between our lowercase m, mind, and uppercase mind of God. You know, we have a lot of words for God in unity, and one of them is God mind. Right? Superconscious mind is another way to look at it. So that capital M mind, that mind of God, connected with each and every one of us, and thought is the conduit. And so a tool that we have, we call denials and affirmations. Right? The first step is always to clear space for something new and better. That's the denial part. Now, it's sort of an unfortunately named step because we're not denying that whatever's going on is not happening. We're simply denying that that is the truth of who we are. Can you hear the difference? So if I'm feeling disconnected, if I'm feeling aimless, feeling like I'm off the path somehow or other, a denial that I can use is this feeling of disconnection from God is not the truth of who I am. I'm not denying that I feel that way. I do feel that way. But I'm denying that that has power over me. I'm denying the power, not the experience. And when we do that, we always follow up immediately with an affirmation, which is a positive statement of truth, to then take the place of what I have cleared out with the denial. Feeling disconnected is not the truth of who I am. I'm a radiating center of God's presence in the world. And as I say that, I know so is everybody else. We all are that. Or I might affirm, God is ever present, there for me to experience any moment that I choose. You see, it puts it back to me. I can decide, I can choose otherwise. And that can help lead me out. So denial, affirmation, always in that order. That's a tool that we have that can help us to shift our consciousness, to shift our thinking. Also in unity, we look to Jesus as an example. We are, in a sense, followers of the way. In the book of Acts, it talks about the way as a descriptor for what the earliest Christians were doing. They were following in the path that Jesus forged. And we see ourselves doing that as well. We look at Jesus in unity as not the great exception, but the great example. We choose to follow not a religion about Jesus so much as the religion of Jesus. And there's a big difference. In the Gospel of Mark, we read, "Do not fear, only believe." This is an affirmation of faith. In fact, we were talking about this in our adult Sunday school, our book study this morning. We just happened to be on this very topic of faith. It's a decision that we make. It's something that we can ease into. It's not a switch on or off. Right? We can first be open to an idea. And then we can agree sort of to try it on for size, if you will, like a jacket. Knowing we can let it go if it doesn't fit right, if it doesn't feel right. But if it does, we continue with it. And we deepen our commitment to that idea. We deepen our faith, if you will. This "do not fear, only believe" from Mark chapter 5 is in the story where Jesus heals a girl who has died. And he makes the statement right before doing so. We also have this guidance in the Gospel of Matthew from Jesus. This is one of my favorites. "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life." Sometimes I forget, and I worry anyway. "Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. But strive first for the kingdom and its righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." That tells me keep my attention on what matters. Keep my attention on that presence of God in me and in the world. And everything else will fall into place when I do that. I have found that to be true in my own life. And just like we might turn our will over and take it back, same thing here. We might focus on that presence of God and then get distracted by what's going on. That's okay. Because when that happens, what do? Just return our attention to the presence of God. It's no harm, no foul. It's not a problem. It's a problem if I make it a problem, but it's not inherently a problem. We say that in our meditation that we do here at 9. Your mind wanders. You find your mind has wandered from your breath. So what? Return your attention to your breath the moment that you notice that. Without judgment. That's the tricky part. Turn your attention to your breath without judgment. Return your attention to the presence of God in you and in the world without judgment on yourself for straying. Judgment's just an ego trip anyway. You know, the idea that I'm going to go around saying I'm the greatest thing in the world, right, that's an ego trip. You know what else is? I'm awful. I'm terrible. I'm the worst. Nobody loves me. That's just the other side of the same coin. I had a teacher once that said that being shy was an ego trip. I didn't like that. Guess why? I was very shy for most of my life. I didn't understand it at first, but then I did. It was explained that, I think that what I have to share is somehow not enough. It's not as good as everyone else. I'm setting myself apart. Can you see that? I create a whole new category just for me. That's the ego. Find this in the Gospel of John. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. Do not let your faith. When we read in unity, when we read something like believe also in me, we understand that to mean the very essence of what Jesus is bringing into the world, that Christ consciousness, that God presence, fully expressed in him. That is what we focus on. When we hear a statement like believe also in me, it's much bigger than just the person who spoke the words. It is the very God presence in that person, which we know and find that we each have in ourselves as well. Now, if you've done any kind of mindfulness meditation, if you've chosen to purposely sort of allow your mind to quiet down, we can't quiet it like a volume knob, but we can do things that will allow it to slowly settle. And one thing we can do is focus our attention within some focal point, like the motion of our breath, for example. Simplest of mindfulness meditation. And if you do that, you begin to notice all this stuff's going on in your head. Right? You got this constant chatter happening. Some things make sense, and some things make no sense at all. And some things you'd be okay if people knew you were thinking, or other things you'd not be so okay. You don't want anybody to know about that, all that crazy stuff. And so we might conclude that I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. Because there's stuff flying around in my head that I don't hear any of you saying. Right? I'm comparing my inside to your outside. Always a losing proposition, by the way. And so there's something wrong with me, and then I become afraid and I stop. But if I'm willing to sit with that, what I will find is that underneath that chatter, underneath whatever dysfunction I may be carrying around, is the presence of God. But I won't find it if I'm not willing to stick around and slog through some mud to see it, to get to it. Each of us has a light that's shining within us, but it can be easy to miss, right? Because it can be covered up with all manner of self-created or inherited almost dysfunction. But that light is there. I know it's there because I can see it in everyone when I look for it. I don't believe it's there because someone told me. I believe it's there because I found it. It leads me and has saved my life as far as I'm concerned. So in continuing also from the Gospel of Mark, you may remember this story. He, Jesus, woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased and there was a dead calm. Again, that simple advice, be still. It's a simple concept. It's not easy to do. But hopefully we practice it in our prayer practice as we turn within. Or we at least create the conditions where it can arise. It's almost as if our mind was like a big bowl of water and we're constantly kind of shaking it, doing all this stuff on the top. If we just stop shaking it, not immediately, but after a while, it calms, does it not? Or even in the fiercest of storms out in the ocean, where the wind is blowing and waves are crashing, if you go down, not that far even, maybe 30 feet, comes a calm. You go further, you have no awareness even of all that's going on the surface. We can do that within our own experience. We experience that presence of God within us, that calm peace that's within. In the daily word today, we heard about faith, I believe. We heard a reference to a story in Mark where there's a boy, I believe it's the boy that has a demon. From the description, it sounds like epilepsy to us today. In the narrative, it's described as a demon. And Jesus heals the boy. And his explanation for this is found in this verse. All things can be done for the one who believes. Sometimes we'll say, I'll believe it when I see it. It's a very practical approach. And there are many circumstances where that's probably a good thing to do. I'll believe it when I see it. My son, Forrest, just got his driver's license, so we've been driving together under his permit. And I'm sharing my infinite fatherly wisdom, which he graciously listens to, at least. He doesn't complain. And one thing is, if I'm going to turn right onto a busy road and there's a car coming that has its blinker on, that it's going to turn right onto the street I'm coming out of, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not going to pull out in front of that car as if that is going to happen. It might even be 999 times out of 1,000 it does, but I don't want to be there that 1,000th time. So when the car slows down and I see that it actually is putting its mouth where its blinker is, putting its money where its blinker is that the saying? Put your money where your mouth is. Then I'll pull out in front of the car. So there's practicality to I'll believe it when I see it. But in the world of the Spirit, that goes out the window. You'll see it when you believe it. You will see that there's good in all people when you believe it and act like it, which means you go and look for it. If I don't look, I won't find. Right? Seek and ye shall find. You know that one. Well, if you don't seek it, you won't find it. We find what we're looking for. So choose wisely. Choose wisely what it is that you go looking for, because you will find it. What I see Jesus doing in this story that heals this boy, several things. He's praying, comforting, healing, accompanying. If you think about the Gospels, we see Jesus doing these things a lot. And if Jesus is the way shower, if we understand him and we follow the way of the Christ, then we too can pray and offer comfort, offer a healing presence, our positive healing presence, our groundedness, if you will. We can accompany others through times of trouble, just as we have been accompanied through times of trouble. You know, I was a hospital chaplain briefly during an internship. And a hospital chaplain, I said it early on, and I still believe that is the weirdest job I've ever had. I'm not even sure I quite even get it. I mean, I do, and I can do it. But it's a weird job. What do? Just kind of go around and talk to people. One of the problems for chaplains is the management can tend to look at you're doing nothing. Well, I'm doing nothing that you can see, but this is a spiritual endeavor. I am bringing my knowing of the truth of the presence of God into every situation I go into. I'm modeling what it means to be connected to God. And yes, I go and visit with people, with families, with patients. I've walked through difficult experiences with people. I accompany them. I pray both on my own to rejuvenate and with people, comfort. I offer healing in that I offer and share my knowing of the presence of God. It's the presence of God that heals. So I bring that healing presence with me for whatever it is that's going to happen. I'm not in charge of that. Weirdest job I've ever had. So we can do those things: pray and comfort, accompany, heal. But the path is not always straight and smooth. turn our will over and we take it back. We repeat. And faith is a messy business.